Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
You done messed up, Aaron!
Scientology International.
Hey, it's Daniel Montalvo. Can I speak with Veronica Barriga, please?
Well, she's not available, but what is it that you need?
What is it that I need? I just want to speak to my mother.
All right. So, I mean, is it something very, very urgent, or?
Los Angeles is on...
I realize family calls are important, but I'm just checking.
All right, yeah, no, I'm just checking up on her. I was trying to reach her on Christmas, and now Los Angeles is on fire, so I just want to make sure she's okay.
I got it. Hold on.
All right.
What? Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
I think they literally even had enough time to call OSA in and let them know. Now, you did actually try to, we haven't even done an introduction, but that's fine. We got plenty of time to get to that. You did actually try to call your mom on Christmas.
Oh, yeah, I tried calling her on Christmas, yep.
How many years has it been since you've spoken to your mom?
14 years, something like that. And
you were born and raised in the Sea Org, right?
Yes.
And your mom works at Middle Management now?
Yeah, at the HGB building in ILO.
And you tried to call her on Christmas, and what did they say?
Got to do my 8E steps. That's it.
Yeah. And in order to do your A to E steps, you have to work that out with the International Justice Chief. So then you said, all right, send me over to the International Justice Chief so I can talk to him.
Listen, I have tried with these criminals. I have tried so hard with them. I have followed all their fucking dumbass rules, and I have tried everything to be in contact with my mom. I haven't spoken out about Scientology in 14, 15 years or whatever long it's been. And that's it. They won't do it. When I called, they said my only terminal is IJC, the International Justice Chief. And I'm like, all right, so let's do this. Let's talk to IJC. Let's transfer me to him. And they wouldn't. They told me to just write him a letter. And they wouldn't even give me the name of IJC, so I can't even send a letter.
Yeah. All right, guys. We have been planning. We've been planning for some time for Daniel. This is Daniel Montalvo. Put his name in the title of the video. We've been planning for some time for Daniel to come to town, and we were going to record hours of conversation here at the podcast desk. But we decided today just to take it slow, but do it live, and do it that way. I'm not really going to be paying much attention to the live chat, guys, but we just decided to do this live.
Spur of the moment.
Well, to make sure that it gets done, to prevent any technical difficulties, to prevent endless editing time, and also so that we don't just have to take one shot at it. You know, we're gonna have a long chat tonight, or as long as we want. Like we'll just go as long as we want. We'll end whenever we want.
All right.
Because and then we'll marinate on it a little bit, and then anything we feel we want to discuss more, we'll just do another chat. That's the beauty of doing it this way.
Perfect.
You know, you can just go and then revisit it. So
perfect.
So many, you know, actually we just got done having a little excitement here in Clearwater.
We did.
Where did we go first?
We went to the QI, which is the old building where all of the cadets grew up at. Anyone that grew up in the Sea Org as a young child here in Clearwater, Florida, grew up at this place that was once a Quality Inn, and they transformed it into be our like birthing school place. Scientology, once they got rid of the cadets, sold that property, one of the few properties they have ever sold in the history of their lifetime. And that is simply because they didn't want anything to do with all the children that grew up there.
Yeah.
They wanted nothing to do with that building, that's for sure.
Okay, so we went over to the QI, which I've never been to before. I've never known where it was.
Yeah.
And it's now a Goodwill something or other.
Yeah, they sold it to Goodwill. It's, I don't know if the Goodwill people live there or if it's offices. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but we recorded about 30 minutes of video. Daniel telling the stories of his time there and things that happened with the kids in different areas and what all the different buildings were. Yeah. I'll put those videos together and publish them separately. And then we went to the Hacienda.
I went to go visit David Miscavige, COB's apartment complex.
We went over to Miscavige's apartment
Little Dave.
and we had some fun over there for about 20 minutes and we got all that on video as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
Good stuff, good stuff.
yes, it's been a good day. Okay, so a lot of the stories on this channel of former Sea Org members, particularly ones who were born and raised in the Sea Org or parents joined the Sea Org when they were very, very young. They've talked about the cadet orgs. They've talked about their ranches. You asked me earlier, is there anyone else that I've spoken to who spent time in the cadet org in Clearwater, Florida?
Mm-hmm.
And I could not think of any.
Yeah.
Everyone I can think of was stories from the cadet org in Los Angeles or the cadet org at International Management at the Int Ranch.
The funny thing is that the cadets in Clearwater, there was probably the same amount of cadets in Clearwater as they were at the Int Ranch and the Pack Ranch combined.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that there's just not a lot of Scientologists that leave Scientology from Clearwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. If you look at most of the people that are speaking out about Scientology, they're all from Los Angeles.
Mm.
There's some very good reasons for that too.
Yeah. I have always felt like I was never a Sea Org member here at Flag, but I was on the base for almost 4 years as an ad-org trainee. Okay. And so I at least know what the experience was like. And I've always felt, it just sounds weird to start the interview this way. I've always felt that being in the Sea Org at Flag was a better Sea Org experience than the experience of being a Sea Org member at Flag was a better experience than any of the other bases. And that might be why Sea Org members from Flag, there's just less former Flag Sea Org members than there are from LA and other cons.
Flag has considerably more money.
Yeah.
And considerably more money. For example, when I was an FSO and when I was at Flag, never once did it happen that we were assigned rice and beans because we couldn't pay for our food.
Right.
We were assigned rice and beans for lower conditions or as a punishment. Over at PAC, they literally could not pay for their food. And so all they could afford was rice and beans, for example.
Yeah.
Another major issue is Clearwater, Florida. There's nothing to do in downtown Clearwater. Scientology has taken over downtown Clearwater, and there is nothing around here for anyone to go do. So on their time off, they just stay inside or they don't take time off here. And so it's very hard to get an outside experience when you're stuck inside all the time.
It's also harder to get in trouble.
Harder to get in trouble. Yes, sir. This is true. Yep.
The people that I know who remember you from that time remember you as being the youngest cadet, like the youngest cadet, the youngest Sea Org member.
I was 10 when I joined the Sea Org from the cadet org.
Right.
To join the actual Sea Org, I was 10 years old.
10 years old.
Yes, sir. Yep.
That is the youngest I've ever heard of.
Yep.
Daniel's a lot younger than me, which I was reminded of today. Every time I tried to mention some common experience I thought we might have had, I'm like, so where would you have been in 1993? He's like, being born?
I was born just a little bit ago.
Okay, so I'm 40. Actually, I forget how many. I was going to say 44, but now I'm questioning that. And you're 33. I couldn't be 44.
Yeah, I'm 33. What are you, 43?
No, I'm 44.
You're 44?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Wait,
Wow.
If I was born September 80, then what am I right now? Yeah, I'm 44. I'm 44. Right. So you're 11 years younger than me.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So even people that I knew from the Flag Cadet Org, who I thought we would both know, they were too old for you to have known them. We have no particular agenda or schedule for this interview. We're just gonna kind of go wherever it takes us.
Let's do it, man.
One of the things you explained to me is you've sort of had 3 lifetimes. You've had your Clearwater Sea Org experience, you had your Los Angeles Sea Org experience, and you've had your post Sea Org experience.
Yes.
And you also, this is not the first time you've spoken out publicly. The first time you did, it was a huge fucking deal. And if I may say, a huge mess.
It was kind of a huge mess. And honestly, in all aspects, it is 100% OSA's mess.
Yeah.
They did it all to them damn selves. I did not do shit. They took care of fucking themselves up. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I left Scientology and I actually agreed to come back and route out properly.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are, if you're in the Sea Org and you want to leave, you can, so long as you route out properly.
Yeah.
And that involves a lot of sec check.
Yeah.
A lot of confessing your overts, a lot of messed work, that is physical labor. And everyone thinks you're a piece of shit. Every single person thinks that you have betrayed them. Every person on the base thinks that you're betraying them. You're a betrayal. You're leaving because you're a scumbag. And that is the only, in Scientology's eyes, if you want to leave Scientology, the rule is, the axiom is that you have overts. You have done something wrong. Not that the church, the beloved, has done something wrong to you, but that you have done things either to the church or to other people that you no longer feel comfortable being in that environment. Now you want to leave.
Right.
So I agree. So I left. I found out the crimes that they committed, essentially. And this was mainly against my father. As a child, I could take punishment, no problem. No problem. In the Sea Org, I took punishment all day, all night, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Once I found out that Scientology wasn't real, it's like, okay, why am I here? What are we doing? Scientology is just a scam. What are we doing here? So I got the fuck out of there. And I went to go find out more, which is why I left, to find out more outside of the Sea Org. Once I found out more, they convinced me to come back and return to route out properly so that I could still be in touch with my parents. And
so that, did they say that if you come back properly, you won't be declared a suppressive person?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Come out properly, come back and route out properly.
Mm-hmm.
You will not be declared a suppressive person. The rule is, if you leave the Sea Org, if you blow, if you leave without permission, it's called a blow. If you blow from the Sea Org, you have a reasonable amount of time, unspecified, reasonable amount of time to return and route out properly, or you will be declared. Once you're declared, you have to then do your A to E steps to get back in good standings. So they convinced me to come back and route out properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I tried doing that, it was all just a mess from there.
I am so tempted to carry on with your leaving the Sea Org story from right there. But before we do that,
right,
let's fill in a little bit of context.
All right.
Okay. Let's explain who your parents are.
Who my parents? Okay. My father's name is Louis Montalvo. Okay. And ever since he joined the Sea Org, he went straight to CMO and straight to the landlord office. His exact post title was the senior architect for the Flagland base CMO CW.
It's a pretty big deal. The last person I remember being on that post was Kylie Rose Pierce's father. Do you happen to know who that is?
I may have. I don't know.
That's fine. It's a big deal, especially since real estate's such a big deal in Scientology.
Real estate is a huge deal. So much so that, so you think the landlord as someone that kind of like gives out keys and takes care of the buildings. And that's what in the real world, the landlord is. In Scientology, the landlord office is, no, the multi-billion-dollar buildings are under your name, that kind of shit. Multi-billion-dollar buildings were under my father's name.
Mm-hmm.
There were, he was named as like the manager for a whole bunch of buildings. And they design the buildings, and they don't do any like cleaning or anything like that. So it's very much like a respected important position.
When your dad was the senior architect for the FLB landlord office, was Tom DeVocht the FLB landlord?
That's right. Tom DeVocht was the landlord, FLB, and he worked very closely with David Miscavige.
Yeah.
And the first project that my dad tackled, I remember, was the Flag AO, actually.
The sandcastle.
Yeah. The sandcastle building used to just be a few stories, and they added 3 more stories on top of that and made that the
I remember that.
Flag Advanced Org, basically.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Have you ever talked to Tom about all this stuff?
Yeah, briefly. Yeah.
Like the first time?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I left, yeah.
Okay, so your dad was the and so what was your mom's post? Who's your mom?
My mom's name is Veronica Barriga. She's been married a few times, so her last name may have changed.
Is she still married to your dad right now?
No. They're
Okay.
divorced. Yeah. She married Chris Biggs from Incom, and they divorced once I left, and she's remarried to someone at ILO. I don't know his name. But in Clearwater, she was the deputy commanding officer, CMO CW for internal.
Yeah.
And she was the direct junior of Angie Blankenship.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are very senior posts. Did your parents' seniority impact your life in the Sea Org? Like, did you go into CMO from the cadet org?
Both yes and no.
Okay.
A lot of people didn't fuck with me, but at the same time, I still got a lot of punishment. so both yes and no. Everyone knew that my parents were super senior high up, and if they were to punish me, if they were to fuck with me, they better just do it properly and not like fuck around too much. On top of that, Scientology is the cult of status. The cult of status. The higher up you go on the org board, the higher up you go in the organizations, even the more privilege you get. So, did it affect me?
Scoot in a little more.
Did it affect me? It did a little bit in terms of I got to hang out with like the senior people, and they all did something separate. They ate separately than everyone else. Whenever there was an org award, they would call it, or Christmas, they did Christmas from everyone else. So it was a little bit more personal that I could be with my mom, as opposed to if she was just an FSO, it wouldn't be as personal. It wouldn't have been as personal.
Okay. So if you don't mind, what I'd try to like to do to connect what we were about to do, which is tell your escape story.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about right now is hit some very quick key points on how you wound up in the Sea Org in LA and how you wound up working at Bridge Publications, but just quickly, and then we'll cover it all later, more detail.
It's not very quick, but let's do it.
I know it's not quick, but we'll figure out. Okay,
for sure, absolutely.
So you're in the cadet org. We're going to figure out some time to talk about that at length.
Right. You
graduate the cadet org. You end up in the regular Sea Org at 10 years old.
Yes.
So you're in the Sea Org at 10 years old. This is around 2003. How long are you in the Sea Org in Clearwater before you end up going to LA, and why did you end up being sent to LA?
Okay, so my dad got promoted. So he was the senior architect FLB. He got promoted to be the flag landlord in middle management. What this position does is takes care of all of the buildings, the renderings, the design, all the buildings in all continents around the world. So this was not just focusing on the base that he was at, but he was focusing on all of the ideal orgs. The ideal org project was his little baby at the time, basically.
So they actually let you go to LA just because your dad was going to LA?
I was a little bit more than that.
Oh, okay, go ahead. We got all the time in the world.
All right, cool. All right, so my dad went to LA, and he was in LA for a long minute. And I was working at the Flag AO, where the true insanity occurs. The flag, ladies and gentlemen, the Flag AO, the Sandcastle, also known as Sandcastle Religious Retreat.
They call it a religious retreat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It's an insane asylum. It's literally an insane asylum run by none other than Tyrone Webb.
That guy's a villain.
That guy is a villain. Yes, sir. He's like a super villain.
Yeah.
No. And anyways, so my mom stayed in Clearwater with me. My dad went to LA to take care of this Ideal Org project being run directly by David Miscavige, directly by COB. And I would try to contact my dad and be like, yo, it's crazy out here. What's going on? Help me, help me, help me. I was a kid. I was like, where the fuck are you? What are you doing? And it was rare that I got to speak to him, so rare. And I kept pushing for me and my mom to go out to LA to be with him. And they wouldn't allow it, wouldn't allow it, wouldn't allow it. And finally I told him, I'm like, yo, this place at the Flag AO is crazy. This place is literally crazy. I said, I'm not going to say it now. I might say it later, but I said something to them and they're like, all right, they approved me right there.
Oh, for real?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I said something to them and they approved me to go to LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they take it as a threat that they were trying to avoid?
Well, let's just put it this way. I found out the truth about the sandcastle. I found out the truth about the AO. And I straight up called them out on it. And they're like, all right, we'll transfer you. And they approved my transfer.
Oh, you got to tell me later.
I will tell you later.
By the way, I just realized you can also sit on these chairs sideways. I've never really tried that. Oh, that's not going to work for me. All right, forget it.
They can fuck with it later.
Okay, so they sent you out to LA, but not your mom.
About a year later, they sent my mom.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so at that time, okay, so if you're working at the Flag AO before you got transferred, you're not in CMO.
No, I'm just an FSO.
Okay.
Sure.
And so then they transfer you to LA. Do you go right to Bridge Publications?
No. I got cat beat.
Who was your EPFIC? Tell me it was Ben Monahan.
Shit,
Please tell me it was Ben
Monahan.
It was Ben Monahan.
Yeah,
That son
Ben
of a bitch.
Monahan. Yes, sir. That crazy motherfucker. Anyone that has done the EPF in LA around my time period knows that Ben Monahan is a crazy motherfucker.
He's a lunatic.
Yeah. No, he took.
You know he's out of the Sea Org, right?
No way.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
Scrubbing dishes somewhere.
I don't know.
All right. All right.
Probably working
And
on a
I think
farm.
the EPFMA was Teresa. I think it was
I don't know.
at Flag.
Teresa Smith?
I don't remember.
No,
At
she was.
Flag there was an at Flag there was an EPFIC
Mm-hmm.
and an EPFer was an EPFMA.
Oh,
But he didn't. The EPFMA at Flag didn't take care of like your ethics stuff. The EPFIC did that. The EPFMA at Flag just ran the EPFers, their musters, production, that kind of shit.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they cat B you. So you're sort of, it's weird. You're being cat B'd, but you're also being promoted. Oh, no.
No, I was
Because you went to
transferred.
PAC.
I got demoted to PAC.
Oh, okay. So you do the EPF. And where do you go after that? Not to Bridge? Not right to
No,
Bridge?
I went to ASHO for a quick minute.
Oh, for real?
Mhm.
What year?
Fucking not now.
2005, 2006? Oh, earlier than that.
Yeah, 2005, 2006. Yeah, 2006 probably.
Okay,
that
so I
was-
would have already been at AO, but I can't believe we
Yes.
were on the base at the same time.
Yeah, it was 2006. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I went to ASHO, and then from ASHO they promoted me to Bridge.
What was your post at ASHO?
I worked in the HTC, board AC and tech page.
You're kidding.
Yeah. No. Do you know who's that guy? The crazy Alvaro
Lupian.
The motherfucker! Oh, you know him. Okay. He was this crazy Mexican guy. Actually,
Well, so I was the
Mexican.
tech sec.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you were the tech sec then.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's great. This guy was so bouncy and jumpy.
In
and this guy had-
retrospect, he was probably secretly on some kind of drug. He was probably secretly on
he
Adderall.
literally looked. I don't know if he actually
It was like,
but
the
he
guy was
literally-
like, just-
yeah,
he's
the
like-
excitement in this guy. He was
Yeah,
like,
it
oh
was-
my god, wow, yes, yes, yes. It was the craziest thing ever. Oh my god.
Was Abdallah still there? The folder page, Abdallah.
Yep.
And what about
Karina was my
Karina
tech sec.
Garon?
Yeah.
So
was
she
the tech
replaced me.
Yeah.
She's one of the people that did hate videos on my
sec. I saw
website.
that. Yeah.
The thing is, Karina was one of my favorite people
She was cool.
in the Sea Org.
She was cool.
She was the Pro TR's practical soup, and I would sort of hobby horse that course room because honestly, I just like working with Karina, and it's a shame. She's a good person. She's a good person. Okay, so you didn't make it at ASHO or whatever. How did they justify getting you from ASHO to Bridge? Because you can't not make it at ASHO. Bridge is a promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the basics were released and they were staffing Bridge. That's what
Oh.
happened.
I see.
They were staffing Bridge like crazy.
And they're probably like, well, you're already flag qualled, so you're probably Bridge qualled.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you're at Bridge Publications. How much of this story do you want to tell, like to make it to properly explain whatever got you to the point of wanting to literally escape from the Sea Org, even though it's all you'd ever known your whole life, and your parents were still there, and you didn't know anyone else in the world? What part of your story explains how you got to that point? Is it your time at Bridge?
Maybe a little bit. So what happened is, like I said, my father was promoted to be the flag landlord. So now he's in charge of this entire ideal org strategy. And when I came out to PAC, he was an ILO, but they're close to each other. You know what I mean? And when I came out to PAC, my dad was literally a broken man.
Oh.
He was different. He had changed. He's completely different. He was once the boss. He was once the shit.
Wow.
And now, even though he was in charge of this huge office, he was a changed person, a totally different person. And this is after coming back from being up lines at INT. And I was like, what happened? I asked him, I was like, what happened when you were at INT? When he was, so he would go up lines to INT, to the secret gold base, to deal with the ideal org strategy program with the other CMO INT executives there, etc. And while he was up there, something happened. I don't know what it was. Well, I didn't know. I know now what happened, but I didn't know at the time what happened. He came back from going up there a broken person. So I'm like, Dad, what happened? He's like, why are you changed? What happened? He wouldn't tell me. He's like, everything's fine. No problem. And I was obsessed with this. It didn't make sense because in Scientology, the higher up you go, you think the more OT these people are, the calmer, the saner, the better. You know what I mean?
That's what I always thought.
You could never imagine the things that were going on up lines at INT to have been going on. If you would have just straight up told me without me looking for myself, I would have been like, no way. This is no way. You're lying.
Right.
Period. You're lying.
Right.
But something happened to my father, and I was determined to find out. At some point in time, I got INT data files access.
I forgot. You told me this.
CMO and Incom cleared me for INT data files access. And I would go from Bridge to the ILO, to the HGB.
Yeah.
And I would see the data dir ILO, and her and I would go on projects to collect all this information from the INT data files.
For what? How did this happen?
This was for Bridge publications specifically. So I was posted at Bridge.
Yeah.
And I was looking up all sorts of information for all of the class 5 orgs. So that's what I was doing there.
Okay.
All right. So between my login and her login, I was able to scour and get all sorts of juicy information.
You could look, you had unlimited access.
Unlimited access. But I didn't have access to they're called Mercs, Merc messages. It's the internal message system. It almost looks like a DOS program. It's like a DOS program that pulls up on your thing. Anyways, I had a whole bunch of Merc messages that I was looking at, and I was getting information from. And Debbie Cook, who was once the captain FSO, she became the captain FLB. And then for some reason, they brought her up lines to deal with shit. I don't know exactly what it was, but she was sending Merc messages to Angie Blankenship, who was in CMO INT. So I could see all of Debbie Cook's messages because she was in a lower org than me.
Oh my God.
Lower than Bridge. But I couldn't see all of Angie Blankenship's messages.
Right.
Okay. They had a whole bunch of messages about my father, and they were degrading.
Oh.
They were disgusting, degrading. They were shit talking my father. It was not cool. It was not okay. Not the fuck okay. And it was due to these messages that I was like, I need more. I need to find out, what is Angie Blankenship saying back? What is going on? And while I am researching and finding this all out, someone that worked in the online sales at Bridge Publications, so he was on the internet all day, every day. He showed me the publications from the Freedom magazine, and it was a new one that just came out. This Freedom magazine was talking about Marty Rathman, Mike Rinder, Tom DeVach, Amy Scobie, and a few others. And it was degrading them. Oh, and Anderson Cooper. And it was degrading them. In Scientology, there's another axiom, okay? If you are being critical, you have overts. So if you are shit talking someone, and it's not like, hey, this person didn't work properly, this person was late for muster. It's like, no, look at this DB, look at his shirt. It's always disgusting. Look at the way this person lives. Look at, like, degrading stuff. When you're being degrading, when you're being critical, it means that you have overts, or so Scientology says.
Right.
So this publication was degrading these people. It was degrading these former INT executives. And I didn't even know they had escaped from Scientology. I didn't even know they left. And I was like, what the fuck? And so he showed me this information. He showed me this Freedom magazine. And I was like, there is no way. There is no fucking way. So I looked it up online, and they had done an interview with Anderson Cooper, and it was called Scientology, A History of Violence. I was like, no fucking way. So I watched the interview online.
You're watching all this while you're still in the Sea Org.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He told me, duck, go, right? That's
yeah.
Duck, go. The VPN gets
the
me
search
past,
engine, whatever.
The go got me past the Scientology filter on the internet. So I was able to look up these things. And so from there, I found out what was really going on. I found out that these people had come out. They'd done an interview with CNN explaining the violence that was occurring up lines. I'm like, fucking shit, that makes sense. That's what happened to my father. Motherfucker was put in the hole. He was a prisoner. He was a POW.
That's what I was going to ask you.
He was a motherfucking prisoner of war. That is what was happening to my father. That's why he came back a broken man.
He saw those
Literally.
executives being tortured.
Yes. And I saw all of those the Merc messages back and forth between these other executives talking about my father. He was there, but it was just bits and pieces because I didn't have both sides I didn't have all the responses. This CNN interview, this Freedom Mag put it all together. There is no way. The Freedom Mag being so critical about Mike Rinder, calling him a used car salesman, degrading the apartment that he currently lived in, calling Amy Scobie, anyways.
I mean, they basically just called her a whore.
Yeah.
And it's like she's been a Sea Org executive for 30 years.
Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And I grew up with Marty Rathbun's wife. She is in charge of the Flagland base. Her post was, his ex-wife, her post was the Deputy Inspector General, FLB, RTC. That is the highest position on the Flagland base.
Yeah.
And Marty Rathbun would come every once in a while to FLB, and my mom explained to me who Marty Rathbun is. He's the super high person. He comes from up lines. He's an RTC, blah, 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 blah. Tom DeVocht, I personally knew Tom DeVocht.
Yeah.
I grew up with him, going to Christmas parties with him. He would give me Christmas presents all the time. He worked super closely with my father. He was my dad's direct senior when he was at Flag. And so I was like, no way. What is going on? So I called. I used LexisNexis, which is a skip tracing software essentially, to find Tom DeVocht. I could not find him. I tried Marty Rathbun. I could not find him. I finally found Mike Rinder on there. I was like, all right, I'm gonna fucking give this a try. I called the motherfucker up. He took my call. I was like, is this Mike Rinder? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, my name is Daniel Montalvo. I'm at Bridge Publications. I saw the publication. My dad is blah, blah, blah. I know he was up there with you guys. I need help. Put me in touch with Tom DeVocht. I know him personally. And he did. He put me in touch with Tom DeVocht. And I got all the information right there.
By the way, did Mike or Tom confirm that when they were in the hole, your dad was there? Or might they have, or if not, they could have been at different times?
My dad was there up lines, but not specifically in the hole when he was there. So
at the very least, your dad went up lines and saw 1 to 200 of the most senior executives being held in a prison.
Yes, sir.
Even that's going to break you as a Sea Org member.
Absolutely.
So he may not have been in the hole himself. Like I'm asking I'm asking.
More than likely he was in the hole.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But at a different time than when Tom and Mike Rinder were in the hole.
Right.
Yes.
By the way, explain how's a Sea Org member having access to LexisNexis?
Ooh, you really want to know?
Well, let's tell the people are going to want to know.
Okay. Scientology doesn't actually know how many members they have.
They know something.
This is where LexisNexis comes into play.
Okay.
They were skip tracing every single CF file they had at every single Sea Org org. So that's how they got a hold of LexisNexis.
Oh.
So Incom got them a LexisNexis login, or I don't know if they have to pay for. I'm sure they have to pay hundreds of thousands.
They've got like an enterprise license or something.
Yeah, something crazy like that. And basically they don't know how many. It was another huge project at the same time that the basics were being released. Every single time someone goes to a different organization, they count it as a whole new person.
That's right.
They get married, their name changes, they count it as a whole new person.
Right.
Their address changes, they count it as a whole new person.
Right.
They stop being on lines for a bit, and then they come back to the organization. Hey, is a whole new person. So they had a problem. They didn't know how many they don't know how many people they have. They don't know how many Scientologists they have. So they were using LexisNexis to try to put all these motherfuckers together. Okay. So they're like, okay, this John Smith is the same as this John Smith is the same as this John Smith is the same as this John Smith. He just changed his address a couple of times. That's all. So every time someone changes the address, it's a whole new person. They were using LexisNexis to put the pieces together to find out how many people they really had.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
when
funny.
when I left,
yeah,
they truly had zero motherfucking clue.
Yeah.
How many Scientologists they actually had.
And yet we're able to very accurately estimate it, even though they
absolutely
don't have any hard numbers.
There are a lot
But
of.
let me ask you this though: they should at least be able to know how many people have current active IAS memberships. No, but even then, you could have a lifetime membership and be declared or have died, and if they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that's not the IAS memberships are literally nothing. There's the IF membership. There's no way to find out how many Scientologists there are based off of IAS memberships.
Oh my God, you're right.
And not only that, they've never even bothered to combine all the IAS memberships to try to figure out. They have never. I'm telling you right now, there's never been a project once to figure out on the IAS side how many Scientologists there are.
Because they don't care. They're just like, as long as they're making money.
No, the
who
IAS
cares?
is a money-making machine. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. The fact that Scientology, that its own mailing list is so inflated like 10, 15 times, like whatever the size of the mailing list is, it's inflated with like people are on there 15, 20, 30 times.
Oh, absolutely.
Combined with the LRH policy that you can never remove anybody from the mailing list, Scientology wastes millions of dollars a year sending mail to people who don't exist. Or sending 10 pieces of mail to the same person.
Maybe. But I mean, each piece of mail is made with slave labor. So
True.
We're talking.
But postage. I just mean postage.
Postage.
Postage is quite expensive.
All right.
Okay, so that's so interesting. So you managed to get a hold of Mike Rinder while you're still in the Sea Org. He puts you in touch with Tom DeVocht. What happens next?
I'm like, Tom, what's going on? I saw this shit on the Freedom Mag. What's going on? And he explains to me everything that happened up lines. And I'm like, all right, that's what the fuck happened to my father. I 1000% believe you. The Freedom Mag gave me two opportunities, two choices, okay? The Freedom Mag was being critical about former Scientologists. So one of two things must have been true. Either Scientology is real, but the person that is issuing the Freedom Mag has overts, which would have been, and these people were attacking David Miscavige, so it must have been with David Miscavige's approval, the Freedom Mag. There's no way the Freedom Mag was issued without his approval. There's a 0% chance, because all of these people were saying that David Miscavige beat his staff. Okay, so Scientology is real, but the upper management has overts, or B, Scientology just simply is not real. Those are the only two choices. Either way, I had to get the fuck out of there. And unfortunately, it is a common thing in Scientology where it's always like, we have the right tech now. It was the executives beforehand that had overts, and they were the SPs. And it's golden age of tech, same shit. Basic books and lectures, same shit. Golden age of tech 2, same shit. They're always just saying that the prior executives fucked everything up and they were SPs.
Now you've got the new OEC, FEBC.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Wow. Okay, so, going through your mind at that time, you've only ever known the Sea Organization.
Ever. The only thing I've ever known.
And yet, this whole idea, after having read the Freedom Mag, you realize there's only two options, and both of those options means I got to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel? Were you scared? Or were you like,
I was more than scared, bro.
Oh.
Like I needed to know the truth, so I had to leave.
so even the effort to leave was so that you could continue to find out what the truth was?
Exactly, 100%.
Wow.
100%.
You mentioned that you watched the Anderson Cooper History of Violence episode.
Yes.
How did you think seeing Anne Rathbun and Jenny DeVocht on Anderson Cooper were acting like lunatics?
I grew up with those people. I literally grew up with those people. I grew up with JDV, with Jenny DeVocht. I could not. I go, no fucking way. No way. This is someone that's normally very composed, very ethical, very clean. There was no way that was happening. Holy shit, that was some craziness right there.
I mean, did you ever see the video of Jenny and Mark Yeager
attacking Mark Rathbun at the airport?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Acting like a lunatic.
Crazies.
And then acting like they weren't sent there for that. They just happened to walk by and see him.
Yeah, of course. They were just at the airport. Just, oh, wow, Mark Rathbun, what are you doing here?
Wow. Okay, so what happens after you talk to Tom DeVocht?
So I explained to Tom what is going on at Bridge. I said, hey, this is what happened to my father, and now this is what's happening at Bridge. You weren't in the Sea Org then, but the basics evolution, the release of the basic book and lectures, was the craziest time I've ever experienced all my lifetime being in the Sea Org.
What year are we talking? 2008 or earlier?
Let's see. I was 2007. 2007 is when they started.
That's right.
Maybe 2008 is when they were released.
That's right. And I left in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
The craziness had started because they were pre-releasing some book sets, but they hadn't released the whole materials grade chart yet, or whatever they call it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I did skip the where everyone was staying up all night, no matter what your post was, just to sell books to Scientologists who didn't exist.
It's its own thing. I'm not going to get into it now, but the time period when the basic book and lectures were being released was one of the darkest times in the Sea Org's history, I would say.
Do you think that period chased away a lot of Sea Org members? Do you think a lot of people left the Sea Org?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No questions asked. No questions asked.
Okay. So
what was happening is that people were being, I'm not going to get into it now so much, but basically everyone was being taken off of post and turned into a BSO, a bookstore officer. And people had auditors, had quotas. These are the people that are supposed to get people up the bridge, yet they were being reduced to having to sell books. And if they didn't sell books, if they didn't make their quotas, it was straight to the galley, straight to the bathrooms with a toothbrush, staying up all night. At Bridge Publications, as sales managers, the people that manage the sales in the entire Bridge sector, there's Bridge and Golden and
New Era Publications.
New Era Publications, yeah. So there's two publications organizations, and there's managers in each one for all of the organizations. Whenever the lower organizations didn't make their quotas, the Bridge sales managers were A, sent to do heavy mess work, B, sent to run around the Bridge Publications facility in Commerce, California in their full uniform, tie, jacket. They had to literally, they had to drop down and give you 20. They had to drop down and give you 20 push-ups. If that wasn't good enough, you had to run around one of the biggest warehouses in East LA multiple times in the heat. Full uniform, tie, jacket, everything.
Sounds like what it's like working at a Grant Cardone company. No,
I'm sure it does. Grant Cardone, that motherfucker.
Okay, so you're telling Tom about everything that's going down at Bridge, everything that happened to your dad. What next?
All right. So I'm like, this is what's going on at Bridge. He's like, well, we'll help you leave if you want to leave. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not ready to leave yet. So just hold on to that thought. And he's like, all right, well, whenever you're ready, you just let me know. I'm like, all right, cool. I continue on with my life at Bridge for a little bit, trying to piece together as much information as I can about everything at this point. To me now, everything is just a fucking lie. Everything is a lie. Every single thing these motherfuckers have told me is a lie, a lie, a lie, a lie, a lie. It's all bullshit. And I'm trying to piece together everything, trying to figure out what's going on. And it was a Thursday. Stats were down. Bridge Publications only sold about $6 million in books, as opposed to the previous week, which was like $7 million in books for a week, mind you. And so we were going to get punished severely. And at that point, I called Tom DeVach and I said, hey, it's now or never, because we're going down. And he's like, all right, well, you get to Hollywood Boulevard to Los Angeles and I'll have someone pick you up. And he called his friends out there. So Tom DeVach lives in Clearwater, Florida. He did at the time.
Huh.
Yeah, he lived in Clearwater, Florida. And so he called his friends, Tiziano Lugli.
Oh, yeah.
Marty Rathman was in LA at the time. He lived in Texas, but he was in LA, just happened to be in LA at the time, luckily.
Yeah.
And they arranged for me to be picked up just next to the HGB. So I drove my Bridge car. The Bridge issued me a car. It's their car, not mine. And I took it to the HGB. I pulled into the CMO parking lot, dropped the keys in the car, got the fuck on out of there. Met Tiziano Lugli at the corner, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay, good. That's a good place to then springboard into the absolute insanity. So that's you blowing, and then you agreed to come back to route out properly, and then they basically set you up. Now, while you were at Bridge, you had an accident.
Well, I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
16 years old. I was producing the Dianetics book, and they were giving us no sleep. My first job at Bridge was in the publishing department. So I physically was there making books. When I was 16, I was physically making books, book binding, thumb notching, all that kind of shit.
And they've got all these machines for that, right?
Yeah, they got state-of-the-art equipment.
Yeah.
And I was 16. They had us up for 3 days in a row. All we could do was take a bus to go shower, change, maybe have a quick nap, back on the bus, back to Bridge Publications, back to work. And we did that multiple times, where there's like these 3 days in a row type thing. Vanessa, the Esto for division, for the production division, the one in
At Bridge?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't know those folks.
Okay. Well, her name was Vanessa. She was the establishment officer for the publishing, whatever. Anyways, she and two other people were licensed to give shots. So they were pumping people with fucking B12 shots.
No.
Yes, sir. Yes. They were pumping people with
way.
B12 shots, keeping them awake. I'm not even kidding.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting people sleep.
Yeah. Instead of letting people sleep, they were pumping them with B12 shots. And due to the lack of sleep, I had an accident. And it chopped my finger off.
You want to show the camera?
No.
Just
kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
It's a little shorter than yours. Yes, sir. It's a little shorter.
it's not working.
Yeah.
Okay, so but it's below. Let me see.
It's the first.
Okay, so you've got that knuckle.
Yeah.
So it's right at
the
the.
first digit. It's called.
Okay, the first digit.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they removed my first digit of my index finger, my right index finger.
How did they handle a minor cutting their finger off at a commercial book production facility after being up for 3 days? How is this dealt with?
Let me explain it to you. First, they called security, which is, by the way, the security officers of the Church of Scientology, or the Gestapo network. If you were to ask me if Scientology is a human trafficking organization, who are the human traffickers? Who are the enforcers? They're the security officers. Those people are the actual human traffickers. There may be a few other people in Department 3 and in HCO, but the actual people are the master at arms and the security officers.
They're the ones keeping people from leaving.
They're the ones keeping you want to walk out the door. They will go to that door. They will prevent you from leaving. They will put, at the very moment that they stop you from walking out that door, they're committing human trafficking.
Yeah.
That's it. You cannot work somewhere and be prevented from leaving. You cannot work somewhere as a volunteer
Right.
and be prevented from leaving.
I think legally that's kidnapping. What do I know? But I'm saying
legally, it's two things.
Trafficking?
It's false imprisonment.
Right, there you go.
Is the proper terminology.
There you go.
False imprisonment. And combined with a few other things, it turns into human trafficking.
Mm.
So if you just stop someone from leaving somewhere, that's false imprisonment. If you were to stop a public from leaving the door, if you're Odo Huber is one of the biggest human traffickers in Los Angeles. Odo Huber is a total fucking criminal.
Yeah.
And anyways, so they called security. Security came and he bandaged up my finger. And then they made the decision with OSA, they're not calling me an ambulance. Finger is chopped the fuck off. They put my finger in an ice bag. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sebastian Rodriguez was Sebi. He was right there with me. He was right there when it happened. And between me and Sebi, we carried my finger in a broken down, raggedy ass piece of shit Honda van with Vanessa, the Esto, driving me all the way from East Los Angeles to Hollywood Boulevard, where the hospitals
to Kaiser.
Exactly. To
right
Kaiser.
Across from LRH Way.
Exactly. Once I got to Kaiser, they're like, "Oh no! The finger specialist is at a different hospital. We need to go to a different hospital." They're like, "Oh, no problem. Let's put his fucking finger and this asshole the fuck back in our rickety van. Let's just take him over there." And they're like, "No! You can't do that. We're calling an ambulance for you guys to transfer me to another hospital right there." Office of Special Affairs met me at the hospital. You're to tell them this was a skateboarding accident, they told me. Here I am in my full bridge uniform.
You're in uniform and they want you to
with my finger in a little bag on ice. And they're like, you're to tell them this is a skateboarding accident. So we tried to sell the first hospital that story, and they weren't really buying it. They transferred us to the other hospital, and they're like, okay, we're just going to tell them. It was a publishing company that you volunteered at accident. I was like, oh, okay.
By the way, wait, is this during daytime hours or is this middle of the night or what?
Daytime.
Okay.
Yeah. Rush hour.
Oh,
so it's like 2 hours from East LA to Hollywood Boulevard.
So they decide not to call an ambulance so that there's not a record of this medical emergency.
And they did not report it to OSHA.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is the second hospital?
It was the Children's Hospital, but it just so happened, I was a child at the time. I was 16.
Yeah.
It just so happened that they had a hand specialist there at the same time. So this hand surgeon made an attempt to reattach my finger. Due to the time from when the accident occurred to when I arrived, the blood had drained from the veins of my finger and they could no longer reattach it.
So if they had called an ambulance and gone to the right place,
an ambulance, which would have phoned ahead of time, radioed ahead of time to find out where the fuck to take me, I would have been taken to the right hospital and I would have a Frankenstein of a finger at least.
Wow. Now here for me, the craziest thing here, as far as like, if I'm working at that hospital and this person is coming, not only are you a minor, not only are they saying you're just volunteering at this place, none of your parents or a legal guardian is with you.
That's right. My mom did meet me at some point at the second hospital.
Oh, because she was in LA.
She was in LA at the time, yes. But my dad, so busy with the Ideal Org project,
never showed up.
Never showed up.
Oh my God.
Vanessa, Sebastian and his wife at the time showed up.
You know, Seb's out of the Sea Org too.
Oh, that's awesome. Good.
He lives in this area.
No way. He lives in Clearwater?
We'll jump on LexisNexis. We'll go find him later.
All right, Sebastian, we're going to track you down.
They actually transferred his dad, Roy, out here so that he could be closer to Sebastian.
He was in security.
Roy was the bike guy.
Yeah,
the bike. Yeah. Holy cow.
Roy was more of like he was security and stuff, but he also dealt with the cameras and all that kind of stuff. He was more of like a hands-on guy. Roy was actually really cool.
So me and Seb were good buddies in the Sea Org.
Oh, cool.
And so, because he was the board IC Astro Foundation when I was the tech sec.
Oh, cool. No way.
And for a while, we were like fitness buddies. We would wake up in the morning early. And of course, because his dad was in security, we had like extra privileges. and we would ride our bikes.
Security would have that gym in the
parking structure.
Parking structure, yes.
We didn't even do that.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
We went to Bally's Total Fitness.
Oh, no way! What? You went to a real spot?
We went
What
to
the
a
fuck?
real ass gym.
Wow.
They would let us
Holy
bike off the
shit.
base before the sun was even up in the morning, go
Wow.
work out, and come back. We were on a big old kick, but we did also use the security gym.
That's good.
But Seb's one of those guys that I'm like, fuck, how's he still in Scientology? If only he would leave.
He's still in Scientology?
Oh yeah, no. When I said he's here, he's not out of Scientology.
Oh,
he's here in
okay.
Scientology.
Okay. Oh, that's super
That's
cool.
why I was joking about. We'll
Wow.
go find him.
Wow, dude. Holy
And his
shit.
dad is still in the Sea Org.
That's so sad. My parents are still in the Sea Org. People have been in the Sea Org for fucking 400 years.
Yeah. So why did they let Seb go with you? Was he your senior?
He was physically right next to me when it happened.
Okay.
That's why he came with me.
Okay.
He had my finger. That's why.
Yeah. Wow. He had my finger.
They're like, all right, you go along. You carry the dude's finger.
Okay. So jumping back to Tiziana picked you up.
Oh yeah, okay. So Tiziano picks me up and brings me over to his house where I meet Marty Rathman. I'm like, hey, Marty, so I heard all this shit. I saw all this shit. What's going on? And he explains everything to me. He explains the hole. He explained what was going on at the hole. He explained that David Miscavige was ripping everyone off of post from uplines. And you could kind of see the trickle effect of what was going on uplines.
Yes.
But in a small, concise version, all the way down to bridge, and then all the way down to the lower Sea Org orgs, and then even down to the class 5 orgs, but nowhere near as bad.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you started to learn the truth about this stuff, of what uplines was like, did it start to make sense why all these fucking people at PAC who had been former int staff were always such crusty, disagreeable, difficult motherfuckers?
Yeah.
Because they knew they'd already seen behind the curtain, and they
yeah.
knew there was no one at the wheel
Mhm.
that you could trust.
Literally.
They were so difficult to work with, those people. Like Jamie Butterworth was one of the biggest fucking whiny crybabies ever. He had been busted down from int.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And I always thought that someone who came down from int would be like, on purpose, KSW, good with discipline, enforcing discipline on each other. But they were always,
The opposite.
yeah, they were terrible Sea Org members.
Yeah.
Because they no longer believed. They knew, hey, what you think about the man at the top,
It
you're
ain't real.
wrong.
Yeah.
Now, in retrospect, I go, then why did they stay in the Sea Org?
What I think a lot of times happens is they're like, okay, just the people at the top are bad, but Elron is actually good. LRH, his technology is good, and his you can actually become OT going his route. And luckily for me, I worked at the Flag AO, which delivers up to OT7.
Mhm.
So I already saw up to OT7 and even OT8. There were a lot of OT8s that hung out at the Flag AO.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of crazy motherfuckers.
They're all crazy.
A bunch of lunatic ass, incompetent motherfuckers. They
Mm.
don't get shit done. It was harder for me.
By the way, give me a cheers. Let's take a real drink.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ah, shit.
By the way, people probably think this is beer. This is just water.
Just water. And that's just cola.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Marty's telling you all this shit. By the way, while you're doing it, are you intimidated by Marty? Are you afraid of Marty? Marty was a scary dude in Scientology.
Yes and no. I was intimidated by everything. I was intimidated simply by the fact that I was talking to SPs.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So I had literally left the only organization I ever know in my entire life
Yeah.
to then talk to some of the worst people
Yeah.
in the world, or so they said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought
Because that is wild.
it is pretty wild. It is literally wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know Tiziano before then?
No,
Yeah. I've actually never met him.
but I think he'd gone to Flag several times, and I may have known his father from being in Flag, like online that Flag is a public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Marty gives you the debrief. You're with Tiziano and Marty. What happens next?
All right. They send me on a plane to Clearwater, Florida,
Because Tom's here.
because Tom is here.
Okay.
And he's the person that I actually knew.
Mm.
So he was going to set me with a job and to get me started out in the real world. I was like, all right, cool. Send me to Clearwater, Florida.
It's kind of funny sending you to Clearwater, Florida.
I know. My Scientology family lives here in Clearwater, Florida. I got to Tom DeVox in Clearwater, Florida. And shortly after I got to his place, my family showed up at Tom DeVox's house front door. They had no idea where he lived. OSA gave him the information.
Right.
Yeah. So they show up and they're like, hey, you need to route out properly so we can still talk to you, blah, blah, blah. So they try extremely hard to convince me to return. I'm like, all right, I'm going to I finally agreed to leave Tom DeVox's house and go to my family's house in Clearwater. They're fully under the control of OSA, 100% directive, 100% being told exactly what to say, what to do by OSA. So I go to their house, and the next step is to convince me to return to Los Angeles to route out properly. During this time period when I'm at their house, I'm also in contact with my parents who are in LA. And they're like, you need to come back, route out. You need to come back, route out, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't so sure about it based off of everything that I found out. I'm like, I'm not so sure about everything right now. Okay. And I just need to take some time to figure shit out. And they're like, all right, the last thing I heard from my mom was I'm going to get on a plane to come and see you.
In Clearwater.
In Clearwater. From Los Angeles to Clearwater. She says, you stay right the fuck there at my family's house. Don't go back to Tom. She's coming on a plane, the next plane, she said, to come see me. After she said that, never heard from her again.
Really?
That was the last thing she ever said to me. I'm getting on the next plane to come see you. And then gone.
Wow. Because presumably I would think she's coming to give you some feeling of familiarity and security and assurance, and I'm escort you back to LA so that you can route out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if she never came out, how did they get you to go back to LA?
All right. Well, I tried to call and contact my mom. They're like, the only person that you can talk to is Kendrick Moxon.
Really?
Yeah. And that kind of pissed me off. I was like, well, why can't I talk to my mom? And we're like, all right, well, we're past that point. Like, but she just said that she was coming out to see me. It's like, well, we're past that point. Now you're just talking to the fucking Moxie Pimps.
Okay. So then how did they get you back to LA?
They finally convinced me that, yes, I could still be in contact with my mom and my grandma and everyone in my family, my Scientology family, if I were to just simply return and route out. They still stuck to that. And that's eventually what they convinced me to do.
You believed them. I probably would have believed them as well.
Yeah.
And so then what happens when you get back to LA?
All right. So this is how it went. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back to LA. They're like, okay, but it's a little bit more than that. When I left, I took 4 hard drives that were in my computer. I wrote the purchase order for these hard drives. I wrote the purchase order for every single computer in the entire church sales office. The entire church sales office, I wrote the purchase order for. I installed every phone, every computer, every network cable in that office. I did it. So it's not like it was provided to me and I didn't know how much it cost. That's not how it went. Anyways, I took 4 hard drives valued at $30 a piece from my computer at Bridge when I left. These hard drives were returned to the church before I ever left Los Angeles. They were FedExed. They were signed for back at Bridge Publications by Mark Gingan Nelson. Mark Gingan Nelson, growing up, worked right with my mom. He was the chief officer, CMOCW. Later to be promoted as the CO CMOCW.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But when he was the CMO CMOCW, he went up lines. And what happens when you go up lines? You get demoted. He got demoted. He got sent and assigned to Bridge.
Oh,
So, yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So anyways, the hard drives were returned. He signed for them at Bridge Publications because they were FedExed. We had the signature. We have proof they were returned. But the church said they did not receive the hard drives.
Of course.
Not only did they not receive the hard drives, but the hard drives were not valued at $30 a piece. They were valued at $200 a piece. Not only were they valued at $200 a piece, but there were 5 of them, not 4 of them. All of a sudden, I stole $1,000 worth of hard drive equipment from the Church of Scientology. In reality,
It was
it was
120
$120. Exactly. In reality, it was not even.
And it was returned. So
It was returned.
Yeah, you
Yes,
can't even
sir.
say it was stolen. It was borrowed by the person who controlled them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then politely returned with motherfucking signature and receipt.
And if we had to, just because this, I guess the details I'm interested in, are we talking days went by before it was returned, weeks, or what?
Probably the next day.
That quickly.
And they were overnighted to Bridge.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like they're setting you up.
Totally set up.
They're
Total
setting you
setup.
up.
So the only person I could talk to, they said.
And how old are you
was
at this time when you're now
19? When I escaped from Bridge Publications, I was 19 years old.
Okay.
Having known nothing of the outside world.
Mhm.
I didn't even know how to order a fucking sandwich.
Did you have a bank account?
Yes.
Did you have a driver's license?
Yes.
Okay.
Only because
Because you had
I
an org
drove
car.
an org car.
Right, okay.
So I kind of made them give me a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, so hard drives are returned. I go to Clearwater. They convince me to come back. But now they're saying that there's an issue with the hard drives. They never received them. The only person I can talk to because of this whole hard drive issue is going to be Kendrick Moxon.
Oh, that's
the church
why.
attorney.
So when they said we're past that point, now you got to talk to Kendrick. That was because now they realized.
Well, they always realized that the hard drives were gone. They
Okay.
were always talking to me about the hard drives.
Okay.
As soon as I left, they checked my computer and they realized they were gone.
Okay.
And anyway, so Kendrick Moxon is like, yeah, well, you can return and route out properly. We're going to set you up at a hotel next to the base. I was like, I don't want to go back to the base. He's like, you don't have to. We're going to set you up at a hotel next to the base and you can just route out there and someone will come and give you your sec check there. I was like, all right, fine. They finally convinced me to do it. He's like, oh, but before you route out, as soon as you get here, you now need it because you took the hard drives and there's issues with these hard drives. What they were trying to do is they were trying to pin it on Marty Rathman, Tom DeVock, and Mike Rinder that I took these hard drives. They're not the reason why I took the hard drives. And they will, for the next 2 years from this moment, try to convince me to say that they took the hard drives.
Oh.
And they would do anything possible to have that occur, including put me in jail.
Wow.
And they just wanted me to give up their names. They wanted me to tell the sheriff's department that it was them that convinced me to take it, when in real life it was not. What was on these hard drives is very damning information to these people. And I'm going to get into that at a differently. I'm not going to talk about that now.
Okay.
Anyways, so basically Kendrick Moxon says that I have to talk to the church attorney when I arrive. After I talk to the church attorney, I then need to go talk to the sheriff's office and let them know everything that happened about these hard drives.
So by the way, Ken is not being the church attorney. It was someone else.
I'm going to talk to a different church attorney.
Wow.
Yeah. And then after I talk to the church attorney, after I talk to the sheriff's office, the church will put me up at a hotel where I will route out properly. At this point, I'm still at my grandma's place in Clearwater, Florida. My grandma and my aunt beg the Church of Scientology for them to come with me. They want to come with me to escort me to do all of this route out process in Los Angeles because they're good standing Scientology, because they're in good standing as Scientologists. The church refuses. They said, you are not allowed to get involved at all whatsoever, other than what you've already done, taking me from Tom DeVox and getting me to return.
Right.
You are not to return with Daniel to Los Angeles. Period.
Wow.
Period. But don't worry. We're going to, after he talks to everyone, we're going to put him up in a hotel. He's going to route out. And then after he routes out, you guys can talk for the rest of your lives. All right, fine. If that's the way it's going to be, I'll do it. I arrive at the airport. I'm greeted by OSA. I'm greeted by Ken Long. His name is Ken Long. He's from the Office of Special Affairs, CLO West US. Okay. He takes me, he was not the driver of this car. He takes me in a blacked out car with, I assume, a private investigator. He was non-SO because I knew all the Sea Org members in LA at the time. He was non-SO. Takes me from there to Century City, to some big tall ass building to talk to some pricey ass fucking church lawyer. Also not familiar with this church lawyer. I think they hired this lawyer just for this purpose. Full debrief on everything that happens with the hard drives and everything. But they're putting the squeeze. They want me to say, oh, it was Mark Rathbun, Tom DeVock, Mike Rinder that made you take these. I'm like, no, actually, I took them. And they weren't happy with that. But I then went with Ken Long in the same car with this driver, this unknown driver, to the East LA Sheriff's Office. At the East LA Sheriff's Office, I then tell the same story to the sheriff. He goes, what was on the hard drives? Why did you take them? Everything. I tell them everything about what was on the hard drives, which is very damning information for the Church of Scientology, by the way. And I tell them they were returned. They were returned right away. And he tells me, well, the Church of Scientology is saying they weren't returned. I was like, well, not right here on me, but I do have the FedEx receipt that it was returned. I guess the Scientology doesn't know how FedEx works. I don't like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, there's a signature right there. Mark Gingan Nelson, bitch. You know what I mean? I can't sign for it if I'm not there. Like, it's not possible. Anyway, so I'm like, no, they were returned. There's receipts. Don't worry. And he's like, well, the Church of Scientology is saying that the hard drives were not 4. There were 5. I was like, no, there was only 4. There were 5 hard drives in my server, in my computer, which was a server. And the 5th one was a solid state drive, SDD. The other 4 were hard disk drives, HDDs. Solid state drive at the time was a very expensive piece of equipment. It was new technology at the time, basically. That hard drive could have been $200. That hard drive was still in the computer. I never took that hard drive out of the computer. I only took the other 4 hard drives out, which were worth $30 maximum.
I can just see them going to your thing and being like, oh, he took 4. There's no way for the authorities to know it wasn't 5. So we'll just take it out.
Except I wrote the purchase orders for everything in that office. And I only wrote 1 purchase order for that fucking $200 hard drive. And they were trying to say that all the hard drives were $200. Not only that, but the connectors are different. So if they actually had a computer specialist come to find out what happened to the laptop, to find out what happened to the server, they would have known exactly what type of hard drives they were. So the connectors are different.
Oh, I get it.
A solid state drive.
Because so even though the drives were missing, you could tell by the connector what type of drive was taken.
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So you could tell, you could easily prove that it was not the same type of hard drive that was there at the computer.
Right. I see.
Anyways, so I talked to the sheriff or the deputy sheriff in East LA. I tell him what was on the hard drives, why I took them, the fact that they were returned. There was 4, not 5. They cost $30 a piece, not $200 a piece. And okay, fine. They're willing to let me go. They just need an address. They're like, all right, cool. So I was like, all right, well, I'm here because the church asked me to come back and the church asked me to see you guys. And that's the reason why I'm here at the sheriff's office. And that's the reason why I'm in Los Angeles. And basically he goes, all right, cool. So what's your cell phone number? What's your phone number? What address? I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a number. Okay. And he's like, all right, well, what's your address going to be? I'm like, all right, Ken Long is there the entire time I'm doing the interview with the sheriff's office. I turn around to OSA, to Ken Long. I'm like, all right, well, you guys promised me a hotel. What's the address for the hotel? The sheriff wants to know. They go, what hotel? I'm not putting you up at a hotel. I didn't tell the sheriff that it was Marty Rathbun, Mike Rinder, and Tom DeVock that told me he took the hard drives, which would have been untrue. It would have been a lie. So I didn't say it because it would have been a lie. And I didn't give them up. And so the church did a whole 180, refused, absolutely refused. They said, we're not going to give you a hotel. I don't know what you're talking about. We're not ratting you out. We're not doing any of that. And I'm like, what do you mean? What the fuck do you mean? This is why I'm here in Los Angeles. You guys told my family not to come because you would take care of it. And now they're going back on their word.
And this whole conversation is also happening in front of the deputy sheriff?
The fucking deputy sheriff.
Wow.
With the motherfucker right there. And he's like, well, we're not giving you anything. So I broke down there, and it was their plan. It was their strategy and their plan all along.
Wow.
It was later revealed that Lee Baca, the sheriff at the time, was taking money from the Church of Scientology.
He went to prison.
Very criminal people in LA.
Yeah.
Very criminal people.
Wow. So you believe that if you had given up falsely Mike, Tom, and Marty, then they would have at least given you an address to give to the sheriff so that you weren't going to be arrested.
And they would have let me route out properly. Exactly.
Oh.
And I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't know the address to Tiziano Lugli's place. I didn't know his phone number off the top of my head. I had none of this information. I couldn't just make up an address and give it to the sheriff. I didn't want to. I didn't even know that you could do something like that. You know what I mean?
Why did they need an address?
Because I had already left LA. I guess they considered me a flight risk.
But you hadn't been arrested or charged with anything, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
At that moment, he said if I just gave him an address, then everything would be good. He could let me go. So,
Even that actually might have been part of the act.
yeah, probably.
Who knows?
It was all.
Wow.
Yeah. So he arrested me.
So you get arrested.
I got fully arrested. The guy was a little bit cool. He was a little bit cool, and he put me in my own cell. He let me keep all my clothes, my shoes, my fucking whatever the shoelaces.
Yeah.
Normally you would get that shit taken off, but he was kind of cool, and I think he felt a little bit of like pity. I think he was being ordered to do it by the sheriff, but he knew that it was wrong. So he showed me a little bit of, they were very nice to me at the sheriff's office, but yeah, they fully arrested me. It gets better. Tiziano Lugli reaches out to Tom DeVach. He's like, hey,
that's right, because Tiziano's right in town.
Yeah, Tiziano lives in LA.
Yeah.
Tom DeVach lives in Clearwater. He's like, hey, whatever happened with the Daniel guy?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he went back to LA to route out. And Tiziano's like, what the fuck? So he starts looking all over LA for me. He checks the hospitals. He checks everywhere. Luckily for him, he finally found me locked up in East LA Sheriff's Office.
He managed to find you.
Yeah. I don't know why he would have looked there, but somehow he found me. He got his people onto it right away. He had a bail bondsman, an attorney, everything. And they start the process of bailing me out. The Church of Scientology is there at the sheriff's office, lying their ass off again. You ready?
Yeah, tell me.
They're saying that what was on the hard drive was untold tens of millions of dollars worth of Scientology secrets, which was not true. The only secrets that were there were the secrets that they commit a whole bunch of crimes.
I mean, in order for it to even be what they're bullshitting,
Well,
it would have to be like the unreleased OT levels.
That's what they're saying. Well, they didn't say
on your hard drive.
They didn't say the OT levels.
Okay.
They said there was unreleased Scientology scriptures.
Priceless unreleased RH material.
Yes.
On your computer.
Yes, sir. On my computer. There it is. I had access to all the good stuff, apparently.
Daniel at Bridge Publications had access to Scientology's most priceless secret.
Hundreds or tens of millions of dollars. So they already got me charged with grand theft felony.
Yeah.
They wanted to up the charges. They wanted it to be a first-degree felony so that they would increase my bail and I could never get out.
I thought grand theft was 2,000 or above.
This was like 200 years ago.
Okay.
So like
okay. So yeah, okay. So I get it. So they're trying to make it almost impossible for Tiziano to bail you out.
Yes.
They're trying to get your charges
bail
increased.
is already set at $30,000, $20,000. I don't remember.
Okay.
And now they're saying, well, hold on. Now that someone's trying to bail him out, we need to up the charges a bit so that the bail gets set higher.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And B, it's more of the Scientology lies. These people are liars. And I eventually got bailed out.
How long were you in jail?
I'm in jail for like 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe a day and a half or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, so eventually I got bailed out. And
And who do you go to? Back to Tiziano?
back to Tiziano. Yeah, he meets me there, and Marty Rathman set up a whole defense fund for me. They get the Honorable John Jude Duran. He was a former mayor of West Hollywood turned defense attorney. Yeah, so they hire his. He was very, very good. And I literally, when I went to my arraignment, the DA's office had completely dropped the case.
Really?
I didn't. I went to my arraignment and they're like, "What case?" I'm not even kidding. The DA's office is like, there is a 0% chance we're prosecuting on this case. Oh,
I have to know, when you're sitting there telling the sheriff about all this stuff, did you ever go like, hey, by the way, did I tell you when I cut my finger off as a child? And they like, did it even come up?
No, I don't remember if I specifically talked about my finger, but I talked about all the criminal information that was on the hard drive.
You did?
Yeah.
To the sheriff.
I told him what was
While
on the hard drive.
While Ken was sitting there. No
were
wonder
not
Ken
happy.
no wonder Ken was pissed.
They were not
He's like,
happy.
you son of a bitch, this was not the deal.
The deal was you tell him it was Marty Rathman.
Wow. 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 Okay, but there's still more to the story, though.
So much more, bro. I could be here for like 10 days just talking.
But well, so let's just hit the biggest points, though.
All right, what else?
So, well, whatever gets us to the part where somehow Scientology manages whatever happened with the apartment and the car and maybe Jason Begay or Luis Garcia or anything that matters
That's
there.
for a later date.
But which part of it is relevant for tonight? You know, like whatever parts of whatever gets us to the part where even after Scientology screwed you there, they still managed to screw you again.
Here's the thing. The only thing I ever wanted was my freedom and my family.
Yeah.
That is it. I didn't want money. I never fucking wanted money from these criminals, ever. And they use that to their advantage because even though I was fully tricked, by the way, this was a full trick. It was not a mistake. It was not a miscommunication.
Yeah.
I was fully tricked by OSA attorneys, Kendrick Moxon, Mike Sutter. Even though I was fully tricked by these people, I said, okay, well, I'm still willing to route out. I'm still willing to do whatever you guys want within reason for me to see my parents again. I'm not talking about betraying the people that got me out. I'm talking about simply, what do you want to talk about? What do you need? You want to sec check me? You want to do this the proper way? Like, whatever the fuck you want to do, I want to be in touch with my family for the rest of my life. And that's how they got me.
Mm-hmm. And what did they and that's what they promised you?
Yes.
And what did they demand in return?
Just the truth about the hard drives and to drop my lawsuit, which I haven't even begun talking about.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So
is that worth mentioning? How about this? How much time goes by between you getting bailed out and you're with Tiziano? How much time goes by between, well, you have that moment, then you have whatever moment the lawsuit was brought.
Let me just tell you a little bit more, okay?
Yeah.
So after I'm bailed out, I then stay in Los Angeles. I don't return to Clearwater. There are 12 private investigators being paid $600 a day to follow my every move.
I remember this now.
Yeah.
They were following you, Tiziano, Marty.
They were trying to find me, is what they were doing. They were following everyone to try to find me because I had gone into hiding, basically. And during that time period when I was in hiding and they had their private investigators looking for me, I was still in touch with my Clearwater family. I'm like, hey, this is what just happened. They promised you that I could route out, but they never allowed me to route out. Instead, they arrested me.
Yeah.
So is this not good enough for you guys to leave Scientology? Is this not open your eyes? Apparently the answer is no.
Wow.
Did not open their eyes one bit.
Did they think you were lying, or it wasn't enough?
They just thought there was a miscommunication.
Ah.
They thought maybe it was a miscommunication, that OSA would never do something like that. Their beloved Church of Scientology would never do something like that. And at that point, I had learned that they would. They very much would do something like that. Anyways, so the private investigators are following me for about a month before they finally track me down and find me. The first thing they do, every single one of these private investigators has a restraining order. Issue a copy of a restraining order to be issued to me, restraining me from going to any of the Scientology buildings where my parents worked.
And the restraining order
Was from my ex-wife, my wife.
That's why they made her do the restraining order.
Yes.
Was just to keep you away from the building.
They lied and they said, okay, so Bridge Publications is in East Los Angeles. And Bridge lives in Lebanon Hall next to the big blue building.
Yeah.
On
LRH Way.
On LRH Way.
Yeah.
So where my wife worked, my ex-wife worked, was in Bridge Publications, East LA, and where she lived was next to the big blue building on L. Ron Hubbard Way. Which
is not where your parents were working.
Which is not where my parents work. My parents were in middle management, which is on Hollywood Boulevard.
And Ivar.
Yeah. And they lived at the AB.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's right. Totally different
Bronson.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said that my ex-wife lived and worked at all of those buildings.
Wow.
So they got a restraining order against me for every Scientology church building that my parents could possibly be at in LA for no reason.
For any XSO people who know the personalities involved here, Genesis Corona is who he was married to in the Sea Org.
True that, yep.
And they had Genesis and a whole bunch of her friends make up some bullshit, bogus stories about Sea Org domestic violence, which, let's be honest, isn't even a thing. I mean, although, okay. And
one could argue that I was domestic violenced at.
That's actually very true. That's actually very true. But I guess what I'm saying is, never in my entire existence in Scientology have I heard of some out ethics or some flap of a Sea Org man hitting his Sea Org wife. I've never heard of such a thing. That's not something that happens in the Sea Org. Okay. And so they got your Sea Org wife to get a restraining order against you so that they could serve you with it to keep you away from your parents.
Exactly.
That is some
insane shit.
Crazy shit.
And I was talking to her sister at the time, who was
Roxy.
Yeah, you know Roxy. Hey, that's cool. I was talking to her sister at the time, who was XSO, but was still a Scientologist, a public Scientologist. And she was saying that had I just told Genesis I would have been leaving, she would have come with me.
Oh, dude.
I know. So whatever. But it's not,
you can't take that risk though. You can't take that risk.
Exactly. If you were to tell your spouse that you're leaving, your spouse has to inform the higher ups, the Gestapo, the human traffickers, that you're planning on leaving.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason it doesn't happen that you guys leave together, and they found out that you told her, she would have been in huge trouble.
Yeah. And then if you would have told her and she would have come, but she was making that decision in the heat of the moment, but didn't really want to do it, then the whole time she's with you, she's reporting on you, she's ratting you out, she's going to go back. Like it's not realistic.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's amazing that Roxy said that.
Oh yeah.
Because that means Genesis, the Sea Org member, told her non-Sea Org sister that if he had just told me, I would have gone with him. That's wild.
Yeah.
Is Genesis still in the Sea Org?
I don't believe so, no.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, so they hit you with this restraining order. And at what point, how much time goes by before you file the lawsuit? And is the lawsuit about your finger or other stuff?
My lawsuit is about my finger and the fact that they tricked me to return to Los Angeles and imprison me.
Interesting.
It was probably a few months between that time period. And by the time I filed my lawsuit, and just to be completely clear, the only thing I ever wanted was my family.
Right.
So many times after they tricked me to the point where I filed my lawsuit, I made attempts for them to just route me out properly so I could be with my family.
Right.
But they chose violence every single time.
Yeah.
They chose the restraining order. They chose they chose to arrest me in Los Angeles. And then finally I got a regular job. I was actually employed by Mark Headley for a wee bit of a time. And I was doing,
This is when Headley was still in LA.
yeah, I was doing AV setup at a pub, at a bar.
Was this when he was still in business with Stephen Castle?
I think so. Mode Systems. Yeah. I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And I was just minding my own fucking business, trying to do my shit. And they had private investigators still following me. Not only were they following me, but then they were going to the owners of the bars that I was working at to do AV setups for Mark Headley and being like, oh, you shouldn't let this guy work here. This guy stole all these hard drives. This guy beats his wife. This guy, and they just made up a whole bunch of shit. So everywhere I went to try to work, they had all sorts of PIs come and spew a whole bunch of bullshit about me.
Yeah. I was just seeing how long we've been going. That's wild.
Yeah.
I wonder if the reason they were never, ever, ever going to be willing to just be like, all right, let's squash it with this guy. He doesn't actually mean us harm, is because they were in a war that they were never going to give up with essentially Mike Rinder and friends.
Yes.
And they're like,
At the time,
we
it was
can
Marty
use
Rath.
Daniel in this war. We are not going to make
they
a peace
used me
deal
as
with Daniel.
Yeah, they used me as a pawn.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. How far did the lawsuit get? Did it get past any arbitration hurdles?
Yes, we were doing depositions.
Really?
Yeah.
Any
And
Sea Org
I'm-
members get deposed?
Well, here's the deal. I was the only one that got deposed.
You got the short end of that deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Honestly, the law firm that took on my case was a huge law firm. Huge. They represent Boeing and Ford. They're a Dykema Gossett. Dykema Gossett. They have offices all over Chicago, LA. But my attorney was he was not up for it. He was not up for it. He was actually just, the only reason they took me on is because he was really good friends with Jason Begay.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a next part of the story that you want to talk about right now?
All right. So I tried everything before I filed the lawsuits. I tried everything to just be in contact with my parents. That's all I wanted. Was I didn't mean my beloved any harm. I call the church my beloved. These people will do anything. Scientologists will lie their fucking ass off to protect their beloved Church of Scientology. It's the craziest thing ever. It's the craziest thing ever. Most prevalent Scientologists, if it comes to the point of like them saying as a Scientologist is a bad thing, they will say they're not a Scientologist. They will protect Scientology at all costs. Anyways, so I tried everything before filing the lawsuit, and that was my last resort. I agreed to file the lawsuit because they came at me legally multiple times. They came after my work. They came after my life. They came after me. And I was willing to forgive them. I'm a very, very forgiving individual. I tried forgiving them. I'm like, all right, let's route out. Let's do this properly. Whatever the fuck. Just put this all past us so we can keep talking to my family. I'll do whatever you want. And they weren't having it. So the only step I could take was to file a lawsuit against the Church of Scientology.
Yeah. And so then what's the next meaningful thing you want to talk about after whatever happened after that, filing the lawsuit? Does it get better after that point for a little bit? Does anything happen after that point that you would characterize as getting better?
After I filed the lawsuit, they took their 12 PIs and shoved them up their ass for a little bit. So, but after I dropped the lawsuit, they're back.
Really?
Yeah.
And what did they do to get you to drop the lawsuit?
They pretended as if, okay, enough of all of this, drop your lawsuit and you can talk to your parents again. Like, oh, that's all I wanted in the first place. All right, are you sure about this? I actually sat down Mike Rinder's replacement. His name is Mike Sutter. He's in CMO Int. I don't know his exact post title, but one could say WDC OSA. I sat the fucker down. I'm like, hey, I'm going to drop my lawsuit. We're not going to go after each other anymore. And he promised me, we're not going after each other anymore. We in effect entered into a truce. As soon as I dropped my lawsuit, fucking start attacking me again. So they broke their truce. The Office of Special Affairs, we had a truce. They broke their truce.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you never got to talk to your parents ever again anyway.
Never, exactly.
Or your other non-Sea Org Scientologist family here in Clearwater.
Exactly.
Wow. And I'm sure there's one of the whole chapters, one of your 3 lifetimes is how you basically made your way in the world at 19 years old on your own with no family and no parents and
no family,
no
parents, no formal education. I never finished high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about we wrap it there for tonight?
Fuck yeah.
Hold on. All right, guys. I hope the audio was fine as we were doing all this. And yeah, we're gonna sleep on this and see what else there is to discuss tomorrow, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click